Hello and welcome to the Joe Ligato Show. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Ligato, and today we're going to be going over what is happening in the Middle East right now. It's a very serious situation, and we see that Israel, which was founded after World War II and was essentially a country that was given to the Jewish population of the world from the United Kingdom, and there were people who were inhabiting that land before the Israel state took it over, and that was the Palestinians, the country of Palestine. And so right now, Palestine is considered to be the largest open-air prison, and it is made up of Gaza and the West Bank. And this area, maybe I should zoom in a little bit here. This area is showing that Palestine has been losing more and more territory to the state of Israel. Israel has been primarily backed up by the United States throughout all of this time. And what has been happening is this small strip of land, Gaza Strip, it looks like they are trying to push to connect Gaza Strip with the West Bank, which would be a shocking thing because you would get more people, more potential recruits for Hamas to continue to wage the battle that is ongoing. And so this area right between the Gaza Strip and Hamas is what is being fought over right now. The town of, I don't know how to pronounce it, but Siderat is being pushed back and forth between the various sides. There's a number of things to go over just initially, and then we can kind of get into what the other factions in the area and in the world are potentially doing about this situation, because it really does involve everyone in the world here. Because this is the most wealthy religious group, Judaism, pitted against, depending on how you look at it, the largest religious group, Islam. Some people say that Christianity is still a little bit bigger, but if Christianity is still a little bit bigger, Islam has the fertility rate that they will soon overtake Christianity. And so that's just a matter of consensus, but either the first or second largest religion in the world is taking on the most wealthy religion in the world by average person's income. And so really interesting developments. We obviously do not support religious conflicts on this channel, but it is interesting to see what could potentially arise from this. So before we get into other countries and other factions' reactions to what is going on in the Middle East, we do have to talk about how did Hamas pull this off? Hamas is conducting its operations in an area of the world that is considered to be the most surveilled, the most under surveillance area in the world. This tiny strip of land, nothing can go on there without the Israelis knowing that something is occurring. And so I really have two thoughts, and they're likely overlapping in terms of what happened. One is, I do think that there is a certain chance that Israel allowed this to happen. Netanyahu, his position as the dictator of Israel, is very precarious right now. There's a lot of different factions disputing his rule. And so, as we know from other incidences in history, Pearl Harbor, 9/11, these various instances can be used to rally the troops to unify the nation. And so there is some willingness, or there's some reason to believe that the attack would have been allowed. However, I do not think that the Israelis expected the attack to go this well. I believe they drank their own Kool-Aid here, where they did think that they were, if not invincible, extremely strong compared to Gaza Strip, because as we're seeing, Gaza Strip, the Hamas faction, they're like they're like riding in sandals, they're hang gliding in, just like really weird ways of conducting warfare that shouldn't work, but is apparently working right now against one of the best militaries in the world, supposed best militaries in the world. I guess you could say it's maybe one of the best equipped, best funded militaries in the world, but maybe not best in terms of actual competence, because people in sandals are defeating them right now. And so I do think that there is some reason to believe that Israel did have intelligence that things were happening. I mean, even if we go to the second point, which is that maybe Hamas was using non-Western phones, such as Huawei's phones, to collaborate and coordinate things, even if that was occurring, I don't think that Israel would be completely without any indication that something was going to be going on. I think it was the scale of it and the success of it that really surprised Israel in this case. And so, and my reason for believing that, by the way, is things like satellite footage alone would just show the mobilization of troops. And so they had to know something was going on. I don't think they knew the extent, and I don't think they knew the severity. So going off the second point, though, which I talked about in passing there, is that the reason the West wants everyone to buy Western-dominated, Western-controlled, Western-produced phones and Western-produced technology is because of the fact that that technology is actually being used to surveil the population. And that's why it was projection, in my opinion, that they accused Huawei and other Chinese companies of surveillance, because in reality, what they wanted was to have surveillance of their own, and they didn't want to lose that benefit, that intelligence collecting benefit, to China, to a more neutral party when it came to these conflicts. And so I think a mix of those two factors, Israel allowing it, but being overconfident, and just new technologies that is allowing these various groups that are anti-Western, anti-imperialist to communicate, to coordinate without having Western surveillance. So those are the two factors going into it. And we see that some interesting things are developing here. We've not seen this level of coordination, of success by Arabic powers against Israel since, I guess you could say the Yom Kippur War. And that is heavily enticing other countries like Egypt, like Syria, like Lebanon, to consider participating in some way, shape, or form. We do know that there is tunnels, there are various ways here at the border between Gaza and Egypt where supplies are likely being run through to equip Gaza Strip factions to fight Israel. And so in terms of supplies, in terms of logistics, Egypt is already directly or indirectly helping Gaza Strip. We also believe there's increasing evidence that, where is it? There's Lebanon. It is becoming increasingly likely that Lebanon, and specifically the Hezbollah faction, will be joining this battle. And the reason we believe that is because they said if ground troops are put into Gaza Strip, that they will be coordinating and opening up a second front in the north of the country. Now, Lebanon is in an extremely precarious situation. It has been for literally decades at this point. It used to be a Christian-dominated country, I believe, in the early 1900s. However, a lot of Christians left the country, and Christian birth rates are lower than Muslim birth rates really all across the world. And right now, the demographic breakdown of Lebanon is really, I would say, the most interesting demographic breakdown of probably any country in the world. It's 33% essentially Shia Muslim, 33% Sunni Muslim, and 33% Christian. And so, where's my mouse cursor? There we go. And so this is a country that is kind of doing a balancing act between multiple different factions. Hezbollah, which I think people would agree is the most well-equipped, faction, potentially aside from the Lebanese army, is a Shia Muslim group, primarily Shia Muslim, although it does get support from other groups. And so we see that Hamas, a Sunni Muslim group, is getting support or potentially getting support from a Shia Muslim group. And this is coming at a time when tensions between these two different denominations of Islam is declining. Saudi Arabia and Iran just made peace in really every way that matters. And so you're seeing that these various Islamic factions are potentially getting together to coordinate and to recapture the Holy Land. And I should also mention, why do you think that Hamas did this? Now, if you're a Western Israeli supporter, you're saying that, well, Hamas is just rabid animals. That's why they're doing this and they need to be genocided. Obviously, I do not agree with that. I don't condone violence in that way. The reason that Hamas and these other factions are waging this war against Israel, and it has been declared a war, is because Israeli factions within Israel are trying to desecrate a holy site, and I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's a holy mosque that is being desecrated. And the reason for that is the belief among Jewish factions that the site of that mosque needs to be used to build a temple in order to bring about their Messiah, the Jewish Messiah. And so in order to bring about the Jewish Messiah, you have to be able to take down that temple, or take down that mosque, in order to build the temple. And so we have a very precarious situation here where a holy site by two different factions currently has a building built on it by one of the factions, and another faction wants to have the holy site have another building in it, a temple instead of a mosque. And so that is the reason that Hamas is given for this conflict. So just to scale back a little bit, Jordan is sympathetic towards Hamas, and they have a very large Palestinian refugee population within their country. And there is increasing evidence that the Palestinian refugees within Jordan are finding ways to cross over to Israel. Now, whether they have any type of governmental support by that from the Jordanian government is unknown at this point, but it is clear that the Jordanian population is sympathetic to the Palestinian cause, and in some way, shape, or form, the Palestinian refugees are able to cross the border there. So we're looking at logistical support from places like Egypt. We're seeing Palestinian refugees potentially harassing this entire side of Israel. We saw that some Israeli tourists within Egypt have been shot and killed by police officers. There is certain suspicions that, well, one, why would any Israelis go to Egypt considering how much Egypt hates them? So my guess is, two, that the Israelis were in Egypt in order to act as spies, in order to figure out where the supplies were coming from for Gaza to launch this attack. Just going off of supplies for a second, it does seem like more and more sources are saying that the reason Israel was caught flat-footed here was because a lot of United States aid has been transferred. Instead of going to Israel like it's typically gone, it's gone to Ukraine instead. And it turns out that, at least in some cases, Israeli equipment and ammunition has gone towards Ukraine as well, because Ukraine has been, how do I put this lightly? Ukraine is another power that is, how do I put this? It's another power where the leadership of the country, just like Israel, is of Jewish descent. Zelensky, other major leaders within the country, Igor Kolomoisky, the major oligarch who got Zelensky installed in power, they're all of Jewish descent. And so Israel has very strong ties to Ukraine, and they've been providing a lot of equipment. Some sources say up to 80% of Israel's just ammunition for various defenses that would have helped in this case has been sent to Ukraine. I don't think they expected a major push by Arabic powers at this specific time, particularly with things like the Abraham Accords being put in place, with Saudi Arabia on the brink of normalizing relations with Israel, things like that. I think Israel thought they were in a safe enough spot that they could just give their equipment to another Jewish power within the world, which is Ukraine. And that did not work out particularly well for Israel, as we're seeing now. So back to what we were talking about before, we see that a northern front's going to be opened up. Logistically, at the very least, Egypt is supplying help. There's really an eastern front, you can say, here, where Palestinian refugees and potentially some Jordanians are going to be joining in. Syria hates Israel, and with good reason. Syria has been fighting its own war against rebels within its country. Those rebels are supported by America and by Israel. United States is currently in the northern parts of Syria and eastern parts of Syria pillaging and looting resources such as oil from the country. They're in there illegally by all accounts. And Israel regularly bombs places in Syria, despite not technically being at war with Syria, and Syria just kind of minding its own business. So they bomb Damascus on a regular basis. And so Syria is positioning troops towards the south as well. And so the northeastern parts of Israel might be facing some battles soon too. So you could have Sunnis and Shia Muslims finally rallying together to fight along multiple fronts, start multiple theaters of this war to fight against Israel, particularly since Israel is so weak right now. So let's scale back a little bit more. And we see that Saudi Arabia is extremely upset about how Israel is handling this situation. And they obviously are upset about what Israel has been doing to the holy site where the mosque is built in Palestine or Israel, however you want to talk about that land. Other nations, I haven't heard overly much from Oman about what they're doing here. Yemen, it sounds like Yemeni fighters might be starting to get involved in Israel, although with the Yemeni civil war, it's hard to say how much support, how many troops they could be providing. United Arab Emirates, another country that is, as far as I understand, very upset with Israel and how they're handling things. Iraq, various militias from Iraq, various supporters, potential recruits are going to try to be making their way towards Palestine, towards Israel. And Iran, obviously a major supporter of Hamas and of Hezbollah. Pakistan, their military and by proxy, their government is completely controlled by the United States. However, Imran Khan, who is probably their most popular former leader, he has come out in support of Palestine. And Afghanistan as well, they are looking to figure out a way to get their troops over to Palestine to fight this cause. Of the Muslim powers of the world, it seems like the only Muslim countries that are supporting Israel are kind of the usual suspects here. Azerbaijan gets a lot of support from Israel in terms of military equipment. It's allowed them to take the territory called, where is it? It's allowed them to take the territory known as, I'm not going to be able to find it on this map, Nagorno-Karabakh, but I don't see where it's at exactly here. I don't recognize any of this language, so I'm not going to be able to find that. But that area is dominated by Armenian populations. However, it has been recently taken by Azerbaijan with the help of Israel. The other major power is the territory of Kosovo, which the United States would love for people to forget about Kosovo, because Kosovo is a territory that is historically controlled by Serbia. However, demographically, it's majority non-Serbians, it's majority Slavic Muslims. And because of that, they voted to secede from the territory. Now, why does America not want to bring up Kosovo is because it directly shows the hypocrisy of America, because Kosovo, because of its population's interest in separating from Serbia, America allowed that. However, with Crimea over here, Crimea was not allowed to cede from Ukraine in order to join Russia, despite being something like 90% Russians in Crimea. So despite these two completely contrasting precedences that were set, this was allowed to happen. And so Kosovo is extremely strongly pro-American and by proxy pro-Israel. So ignoring that hypocrisy for a second about Kosovo and Crimea, we also have Turkey. Turkey is in a precarious situation because they're very close to places like Azerbaijan, and they're somewhat close to Israel, more close than a lot of the Arabic powers. Turkey is not an Arabic power, they are a Turkish power. And the other Turkish countries are kind of over here, Turkmenistan, things like that, Tajikistan. And so Turkey is very sympathetic to Islamic causes because they are an Islamic country. However, they also have some relations with Israel. So they're a little bit more tepid in their response. They're a little bit more hesitant, a little bit more cautious, wary, whatever you want to call it, in their response compared to countries such as, say, Lebanon. Now, we do have to ask ourselves, who is supporting Hamas here? Because this is a big deal. So it's entirely possible that because of America unfreezing the Iranian resources that were in the Western world, that they very illegally froze, which they were not allowed to do, which is against international norms and laws. Because that, I believe it was $6 billion was unfrozen, people are suspecting that Iran did that. Now, there's some reason to believe that Iran didn't use that money specifically. Maybe they supported in other way, shape, or form, but they probably didn't use that money specifically because they need to be able to access these various funds in the future. They want to make sure that America doesn't steal their money again. And so they probably didn't leave any sort of paper trail to that $6 billion that they had unfrozen. And so that leaves us with some other ideas about where did this money come from? Where did the support, where did the equipment, where did the technical know-how to pull this off? Because this is the biggest victory that Arabic powers have, I think, ever had against Israel, I would say. And there's really two major kind of countries that could have done this. And it's hard to say which of them did it, but I'm just going to offer some ideas, some hypotheses on why these two countries might have done it. So Russia and China. Russia and China are consistently in the news nowadays, and it's for good reason that they're in the news because they are both either peer or near peer competitors of the United States, and they really, really, really hate the United States for good reason. And Russia is currently involved in a war with Ukraine here, and Ukraine is getting its supplies from Western sources. And so it's to Russia's benefit to open up another theater of war in the Middle East, particularly if it gets the various Islamic powers on Russia's side, which they already have the Chechens and Dagestanis and other various small republics in Russia on their side, the Islamic majority republics in Russia. But they want to have these other various Islamic powers on their side as well. They already had Iranians. Saudi Arabia was kind of balancing the fence before, but they are definitively in the Russia-China camp now. And Turkey is kind of another one of those on the fence. They're a NATO power. They would have liked in the past to be a European Union power. However, it's very clear that the West does not really support them. The West does not really like them. They just kind of keep them on a string because Turkey is strategically located. And so Turkey has been gravitating more towards the Russia-China axis. But going back to what I was saying is, if Israel is facing a severe war, which is becoming increasingly likely because Hamas and its allies have gotten a lot of victories in Palestine, then that means less support for Ukraine, and so Russia can increase pressure on collapsing the Ukrainian front, which I think is very likely to occur. There's increasing evidence that the actual killed in action rates or permanently wounded is somewhere around 400 to 500,000 in Ukraine. If you're just looking at things like census data, things like what lessons are being learned from the Ukrainian war that are being implemented in Western military colleges, things like that. It looks like there's a certain amount of casualties and a certain amount of killed in actions that you can expect per day, per week, per month, per year, that if you calculate that out by this point in the war, we can expect something like 400 to 500,000 just killed in actions. It's not casualties. The casualties are far, far higher than that. So Russia might be trying to open up this other front in order to garner more support and in order to make sure that less equipment, less support can be given to Ukraine. The other one is China. And China has the manufacturing capacity, and at the very least, it does look like Huawei phones are being used to wage this war. So that's going to win a lot of support from various Islamic powers for China, because they've been wanting to retake these holy sites from Israel for a very, very, very long time. And so the opportunity provided by non-Western sources of communication is huge for them. And so there is some people speculating that China might be involved. I actually think it's a weaker case than Russia being involved, particularly because the military know-how to wage this war would really, I think, need Russian powers on board, because Russia is currently fighting a war, and they're learning a lot from that war in order to figure out how to be more efficient, more successful in terms of waging war in the future. And so it feels like, just on a gut level, that Russian sources have to be in some way, shape, or form helping the Islamic factions that are currently waging war against Israel. China has the manufacturing capacity to help out here, but I don't think they have the kind of warfare know-how that comes from actual experience in conflict to be the major backer here. And again, I don't think Iran is, just because, yes, they're obviously supporting Palestine. However, they don't have the current military conflict in order to have the experience there. They do have some equipment that they can obviously help with, but the resources just aren't there in order to just donate the equipment and the ammunition necessary for this type of war. And aside from that $6 billion, which again, that could be a possibility, but I think there's enough of a paper trail there that if it does come down to that, then it will be known that it was the $6 billion. Because I believe there are various mechanisms that the West can use to figure out if that money was used to help Hamas in this situation. So again, that's why I don't think that money was used for this specific situation. So a lot of really interesting things going on along this conflict. So things to look forward to in the future here is if Gaza and the West Bank here, they put the name there. If Gaza and the West Bank are able to become connected, I think that's going to be a huge psychological victory for the Islamic world. And it's going to allow them to open up kind of the second phase of this war. And so just continue to watch, continue to look forward to any maps that show increasing progress along these borders here. So I just want to get this video out to all of you. It's a major ongoing crisis, and I think it's worth us covering it. We do have more content along the lines of talking about Ukraine, talking about increasing Russia dominance, talking about increasing Chinese dominance along a variety of different fields. We're going to be talking about America in decline. We have a ton of videos on that. I have an entire series on the Edelman Trust Survey of 2023 that really goes into the decline of the West and decline of trust and cooperation in the West. So stay tuned for that video. So anyways, thank you for sticking with us. I appreciate you, and I appreciate your interest in what I consider to be extremely important topics, because this is, as I mentioned at the beginning, the most wealthy religious group on a per-person basis, Judaism, coming into conflict with both of the major denominations of Islam, Sunni and Shia Islam, which is either the most populous or second most populous religion in the world. So I think it's a major, major, major topic, and I appreciate you staying with us on this. So give us a thumbs up for this video if you liked the video, and if you want to see more content from me, please subscribe to our channel. We have long-form videos being published every single day right now, which is very exciting for us. It's exciting to see the increasing engagement as well. So if you have any comments, questions, concerns, please put that in the comment box. I always read them. I will respond if necessary. So thanks again for watching, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.